أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So welcome to the second session on irregular surf. So in today's session we will learn regarding different classification of Mahmooz and Mu'tal. So Mahmooz is classified into three categories on the basis of these conditions. So on the basis of which of the root letter is a hamza. Suppose the fa letter is a hamza, we call it Mahmooz al fa. If the ain letter is a hamza, we call it Mahmooz al ain. And if the lam letter is a hamza, we call it Mahmooz al lam. So Mahmooz al fa is when the fa letter is a hamza, and an example of it is akala. Here the fa letter, the first root letter is a hamza. Mahmooz al lam is when the ain letter is a hamza, and an example of it is sa'ala, where the second root letter is a hamza. And Mahmooz al lam is when the lam kalima, the last root letter, is a hamza, and an example of it is dara'a, he rejected. The last root letter, which is the lam kalima, is a hamza. So on the basis of this, the placement of hamza into one of the root letters, we classify Mahmooz as Mahmooz al fa, Mahmooz al ain, and Mahmooz al lam. Now classification of Mu'tal. Now classification of Mu'tal is also on the similar basis of the placement of wa or ya into one of the root letters. If it is fa, we call it Mu'tal. If it is fa kalima, we call it Mu'tal. When the first root letter is a wa or ya, when the first root letter is a wa or ya, we call it mithal, not Mu'tal. Okay. When the second root letter is a wa or ya, we call it ajwaf. And when the third root letter is a wa or ya, we call it naqis. So we have got mithal, ajwaf, naqis, following the pattern of wa or ya being on the fa kalima or the lam kalima, fa kalima or the ain kalima or the lam kalima. Now we also learned in the previous class that in Mu'tal we can have more than two root letters as a wa or a ya. So if we have more than two root letters as a wa or ya, we call that class of Mu'tal as lafif. So and lafif also can have only two kind of combinations. First is that the first and the third root letter, that it means the fa kalima and the lam kalima, can be wa or ya together, or the second and the third root letter, that is the ain kalima and the lam kalima, can be a wa or ya. So the first three categories, mithal, ajwaf, naqis, is when only one of the root letter, the fa, the lam, the ain or the lam kalima, is a wa or ya. And lafif is when we have got two root letters as a wa or ya. Now mithal is when the fa root letter is a wa or ya. An example of it is, let's take the example of the root letters wa, da, and ain. We have got wada'a, he put. Ajwaf, we have the example of the ain letter, ain kalima, being a wa or ya, and an example of it is when we have this combination, let's say, of waw and lam, and from that we have qala yaqulu. The root letters are qaf, waw, and lam, and the middle letter or the ain kalima is a waw, and from that we have got qala yaqulu. Actually it was qawala, but due to a pronunciation pattern followed in Arabic, we pronounce it as qala rather than as qawala. We will be learning about this inshallah later on. Now naqis is when the lam kalima is a wa or ya. An example of it is of a root letter combination of dal, ain, and waw. So from that we have da'a yadahu. Lafif, as we already learned, we have got when the fa and the lam kalima, that is the first and the third root letters, can be a wa or ya together, and in that case we call that it as lafif mafruq. Mafruq literally means separated. Another kind of lafif is when the ain kalima and the lam kalima is a wa or ya. So we have got the first and the third as a combination of lafif, or in the second or the third. So the third is always there. It's only the first and the second changing places. In the second case, we call this as lafif maqroon. Maqroon is paired together. We see that two root letters of let's say waw and ya are paired together here, and we see that the root letters, if they're waw or ya, they are separated by the ain kalima. So these are two kinds of lafif mafruq and lafif maqroon. The first and the third in the first one, and the second and the third in the second one. Example of lafif al-mafruq is of a combination of, one example is of waw, qaf and ya. So from we have waqayaqi, wiqayatan, and an example of al-lafif al-maqroon is of lam, waw and ya. Lam, waw and ya is a root letter combination, and from that we have lawa yilwi. So here we have waw and ya paired up as the last two root letters. So that's all for today. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.